Hey guys, welcome to my podcast, Coming Clean. I'm your host, Kylie Lewis, and I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, so we're here at Namaste Studios in Forest City Float with Tami Bogard. And one, I'm really excited to be here because I was saying on my way here that I think it's so cool that this exists in Rockford. And I don't think I ever imagined the day that it would. So thanks for bringing it here.
Oh,
and when
you're
I say it, I mean float tanks, which a lot of people don't know what that is. So I guess let's just start there, and then we'll kind of work backwards because I want to know how. I don't know a lot about you, so I'd love to know kind of how you got here to be the woman that you are, who owns a place like this in Rockford, Illinois. So maybe actually let's start there. How about that?
Okay.
Start at the beginning and whatever that means to you. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Flotation therapy first came about in my when I first noticed it was when my son Michael had asked us about 5 years ago if we thought that the floors up here at Namaste Studios could sustain the weight of a flotation therapy pod, and I had no idea what it was. And we thought about it for a little bit, and then we thought probably not. And so we just kind of went on our way from there. And like I was mentioning earlier, we always wanted to have a reception area for our yoga students, something more than just coming up the stairs, being in the hallway, and walking into the yoga studio. So we wanted to have something a little bit more for them. Mm-hmm. And so probably about 4 years ago, we started talking about building this space back here, which is directly behind the yoga studio, if anybody's ever been up here before. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't getting any traction. We were talking about it with landlords, we were talking about it with contractors, and talking about it with each other, and it just wasn't gaining any traction until it was about a year and a half ago. My other son had picked up some flotation therapy float pod sessions up in Milwaukee for all of us for a Christmas gift. And then a few months later, we went and floated up at Float Milwaukee.
That was your first time?
First time.
Okay.
First time.
A year and a half ago?
About a year and a half ago. Maybe almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, we were all solid, definite, we need to do this.
After your first float?
After the first float. First float had us convinced completely that we needed to do the reception area, build out all of the space back here, mm-hmm. make flotation therapy rooms, and just do it. And so we started working on it.
Why was it such a clear thing? Like when you experienced it, what made you go, we need to make this?
Pretty much because I do acupressure. I practice acupressure. I've been a yoga teacher since 2003. Meditation I've been doing since I was 24. Oh. So what I realized was, without doing anything in flotation therapy pod, I was getting the same effects as all of those other things that I do on a normal basis.
Yeah.
With no effort.
Wow.
So we thought, wow, sometimes it's difficult for people to commit to a yoga practice. And sometimes it's difficult for people to commit to a meditation practice. These are things that they physically have to do themselves. But sometimes it works better if we don't have to do anything at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A little bit easier entry to that. So that's
where it all started.
Yeah.
So cool. So you have the float tanks here now. I know it's been quite a process of like construction, and then obviously getting the pods in here, which I saw a video you guys put out. You had to bring them through the window?
In the window.
Oh my gosh.
If they don't fit through the door, through the window.
That must have been so scary. Like, because they're not cheap. So you're like watching them be lifted up through the window. Oh my God.
I have great confidence in people who do certain things for a living, and Like one time, I ascended and descended a 10-story building on an ascender, and I thought to myself, "What am I doing here?" This was in a adventure race.
Oh, interesting.
And I thought, okay, I trust ropes people because they know what they're doing. So I didn't have any worries about going up the building, up 10 stories on the outside of it, coming back down, because I trust ropes people. So same with the pods in the window. The fork truck drivers, I trusted them. I trusted the guys that secured them to the forklift. I trusted the guys who were going to pick them up off the load and bring them in here, and so really it wasn't scary at all, but exciting.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I often say, especially like over the last few years, whenever I get ready to do something like a podcast or a speech or something that kind of scares me, instead of thinking I'm nervous, I always rephrase that to I'm excited, because all it is extra energy, adrenaline. It's like, use that. It doesn't have to be negative.
Right. Absolutely agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in this concept of trust, I love that you brought it up, because I'm sure you've encountered it so many times in your life, and I think that's where maybe we seek things like meditation and yoga and maybe floating to get ourselves to just let go and to realize there's nothing serious going on here, but our mind wants to control, and our mind is almost like allergic to surrender and trust.
Right.
So how has yoga played a role? How has meditation played a role? How has business owning challenged or strengthened that for you, that idea of trust and surrender?
Yeah. I can remember thinking when I probably was in my 20s, maybe close to 30s, the thought of surrender, never.
I will never surrender. Yeah.
Because I was thinking of it in a different aspect. I was completely thinking of it in a different aspect.
Like, if I surrender, I'm giving up, kind of thing?
Yeah. Or surrendering things or aspects. And now that I teach yoga and teach meditation, surrender has a complete different meaning to me. I suppose it's kind of the same. It's letting go of the control of what's actually going to happen, and kind of working with what's coming and the flow of things. Yeah. That's the big change. So that's really interesting that you brought that up, because of what I brought up, as it flows, right?
Right.
When we started this build out and we started to do this work, I realized what a bubble I live in. I'm constantly doing yoga. I'm meditating all the time with people. I'm doing acupressure sessions with people. I'm doing float pod stuff. I'm constantly in that void. I'm always in that space where it's a relaxed atmosphere. And not really because I'm controlling it, but I'm holding that space for people. And then I get to live in it too. So when we started doing construction and moving into maybe different parts of the world I'm not usually in, and working deals with people and trying to have everybody understand exactly what it is that you want. And this is like not a usual construction whatsoever. It's atypical, so different.
Right.
I realized that I was being challenged to be calm, and I was being challenged to surrender, and I was being challenged on a daily basis.
I bet.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've been pretty cozy back over here just doing yoga in my space and not having to navigate spaces I don't usually navigate. And so I thought, okay, I know why all this is happening.
Yes.
Because I'm being challenged to take it to a deeper level.
Yeah.
Of cooperation and being and allowing and letting flow. And don't get me wrong, there were or many times where I was against. But then there are some times, and it's hard if you're used to being in that space where you're just letting the universe and flow happen. And then that point comes up and you're like, am I supposed to fight for this? Am I supposed to, is this something that I need to dig down and say, okay, usually I let the universe flow, but I think this needs to be the way I think it needs to be.
Yeah, that is so hard.
Slippery slope.
Yeah. It is so hard to decipher between those two things.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a dance. And I love that you brought this up too, like that idea that you're in this bubble and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You've created this beautiful life for yourself where every day you get to come to work, but you get to play and you get to relax and you get to help guide and support other people do that while they do that. And I think that's beautiful and I can relate as well, but I definitely notice that it's such a habit of the mind to get comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And we love familiarity.
Right.
And so when those new things come in and they challenge you, you're like, it's so powerful. Like you have to know that those things are never going to stop and you don't want them to stop.
Right.
Because that's what makes you, like you said, dig deeper and find even more trust and continuously grow because you're challenged once again.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I thought I got it all figured out.
I had this.
Yeah. The universe comes around and it's like, nope.
Yeah. The world is full of opportunities to navigate well.
Yeah.
For yourself and for others. For others as well.
What do you mean by that? For others?
When an opportunity comes up and you're engaged with somebody else and you're looking to navigate that space so you feel good, it's also for other people so that they feel good as well. It's just as much because it kind of you're an example at that point, so you're that shining example of how to navigate well, and then it just kind of emanates out to other people, and then they pick it up as well. They don't feel as tense and they feel more comfortable. I noticed that a lot with my family, how I have that ability to make that space for them so that they feel more comfortable.
And when you say your family, do you mean your husband and your sons? Is that what, do you have just sons?
I have 2 sons and I have 2 granddaughters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
One from each of them?
No, 2 from the oldest.
Okay.
And they live with us for half the week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So fun.
That's awesome.
It's an incredible opportunity that most grandparents never have.
Yeah. And talk about the best reminder to let go and play. Like, I don't know how old are they?
6 and 7.
Yeah. My nieces are 6 and 9. And the moment I enter the space with them, it's like you're just constantly being reminded to be here now. Because that's all that they know.
Right.
And
yeah, that's where they live.
Yeah, that's where they live. And it's so refreshing. It's so great. So the fact that they're with you for half the week is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of good times.
I bet they love being around you.
I hope so. I think they do.
Yeah.
We get to be grandpa and grandma, so it's not that the rules are any more lax, it's just there's a little more time.
Yeah, true. That's
a little
true.
more time.
Different than a parent-child relationship.
Yep.
So do you do yoga with them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they love it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we have a yoga kids class here and a yoga tots class here.
Oh, that's right.
And so they come to that class with me, or we do those things at home.
Very cool.
Yeah, they've been doing it. The youngest has probably been doing it since she was 1.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And they meditate and
they do.
Yeah.
So what is that? I know that there's there's a movement, right? And obviously, maybe in more progressive places, but it's even starting here. I know,
it is.
I know a lot is going on in the Rockford area too, with meditation maybe in the classroom, super young age. So are you taking part in that at all, or do you facilitate meditation for kids here? And all of that said, like, what does that look like when your granddaughters meditate? Like, how do you facilitate that for a child?
Well, I think it's a lot easier for them than it is for older people. And all they need is permission and the opportunity. And they're in it like that because they're so close to it. They haven't really had the opportunity to be pulled out into the world and feel the responsibility of all these other things pulling on them, and they're able to connect with that spot, that space inside, that center. And it takes very little guidance. But I find that if I get them to hear their self-breathing, and if I get them to feel the movement of their breath in their body, it is instant. And they crave it, I think. I think they really do. So we've talked to a number of schools. We've been in contact with a number of teachers. And one of our students who is a teacher has brought the program to Gregory School.
And that's a grade school?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they cycle kids in a 3-week program through 2 times a week going to yoga with this teacher.
That's really cool.
It is. They've dedicated a room. It's the Mindful Moment room.
Wow.
Yeah, where they do yoga. It's incredibly helpful. And one of the things that we want to do here at Namaste Studios is to have a 200-hour yoga teacher training. So not to teach teachers how to teach yoga classes, but how to teach teachers how to facilitate yoga meditation in the classroom.
Okay.
So it'd be, I think, probably about, a 20-module program that you could come in and you could go back and forth. It doesn't have to go from 1 to 20. You could dabble in the different modules that we'll be offering here.
That's really cool. So are you talking about having teachers, like classroom education teachers, come in and learn how to teach yoga so they can implement it into their classroom?
Yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Similar to Breathe for Change, that's based in Madison.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Pretty much across the nation now.
Breathe for Change, you said?
Breathe for Change.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll link it in the description of the episode.
Yeah.
That's really neat. I mean, anything positive that can start at a younger age is just incredible. And things I wish I would have had, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody wishes.
Right.
Once you find it, you're like...
I've said that myself. I said, how come I didn't know about a lot of these things? And at first I kind of felt like, why didn't I know about these things, But I kind of feel like you're really supposed to stumble on them at the right time. Yeah,
I agree.
If we had been given that little pamphlet that we talk about, we wish we had.
Yeah.
We probably would have sat it down for another 15 years and not looked at it.
That's true.
So.
Yeah. It is true, because all of the adversity is so valuable.
It is.
And I spoke at Harlem High School recently to freshman through senior, and I was talking about that. Like, I was sharing my own story of adversity, and I told them I'm not sharing this so that I can protect you from your own. I'm just sharing to give you tools for when you go through your own, because you will, and you should, because that's the value.
Yeah.
That's how you grow and become stronger for the next one.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that tree on East State Street? It's right near Prospect. It's an evergreen.
Okay.
And it comes up like this. Mm-hmm. Then it's got this very, very drastic down, and it's got this very, very drastic up, and then all of the evergreen leaves on top of it.
I've never seen it. I'll have to check it out.
It is the prime example of adversity and Oh, you grow.
Yeah, right? Zigzag.
It's a zigzag. It's a Z shape. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's funny. I'm sure you know who Tony Robbins is.
Yeah.
He talks about how his wife taught him to zig and zag.
Oh.
Meaning like to surrender and then control and kind of go back and forth.
Ooh, yeah. Kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
when
that
to,
dance.
When to take the reins.
Yep.
And when to let the flow happen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very.
I find that too, even in conversations, especially when I have a guest, and I'm only, this is episode number 72, I think, and I did a large portion of my first podcast by myself, which was really easy, right? That was the comfort bubble. I'm just talking to myself, by myself.
Right.
There's nobody to take into consideration. It's almost kind of like being single, right, in your life. It's pretty easy. And then when you add someone else into the mix, then you have to consider the other person. Yeah. So I guess that's a good segue into asking about your relationship. And I'm curious because my boyfriend and I do a lot of work together, and it's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced because we're always together and we always have ideas.
Yeah.
And we're great counterparts, yin and yang, of masculine and feminine. So how has your relationship evolved and grown and strengthened from you both own this place together and you both teach here, right? So how has that, what's the journey of your relationship looked like?
Well, for the longest time, when my husband Ben was working in, I guess it's shipping and receiving with different companies around the area.
You can pick that up if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of like sliding back. I always wanted him to come work with me. I wanted him to be here at the studio, and he was like, you know what? I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. I think I need to stay out here and kind of make this kind of money and do this kind of job for a while. Then a couple years later, we found out he had a brain tumor.
Wow.
Yeah. It was non-cancerous, but it had probably been there for at least 20 years. And I think that with the addition of meditation and more yoga for him, I think he was using more parts of his brain and just started bumping up against it. It was causing him seizures. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's how you found out, was the seizures?
Yeah, grand mal seizures.
What is that? What, I don't know.
Like the most violent style of a seizure where you fall down on the ground and your whole body arcs up and you, every muscle in your body contracts.
Wow.
Yeah, it happened a couple times. Having gone through that and then realizing, oh, you kept your job. That was probably a really good idea. To be honest. Financially, and having good insurance through his companies and so forth. So he had to have surgery, which was very successful. And then he had tomotherapy, which is a radiation therapy done after that, which is not radioactive. And they discovered it in UW-Madison. And that's where he had the therapy done, is right exactly where they discovered it.
Wow.
So that was about 10 years ago.
Wow.
Then he got to come work with me.
So is that like what he chose then? Was that from that point forward, he said, I'm leaving my job and coming here? Or was it not so clean cut? There's a big road of recovery. So he wasn't working at the time, and because he took a little while to make the decision on what route to take for treatment, they fired him. Oh, I see.
And so, we had to make a quick pivot to Cobra, and we had to make a quick pivot to Social Security disability. So, yeah.
All the complications. It's not
Big
just
details.
life and...
No, yeah. So we've, ever since, been together every day, working on this, and yeah.
Here you are.
Yeah.
And he was just here. I
Yeah.
saw him.
Oh, did he?
He was poking his head in behind you, behind the frosted glass.
We are a really interesting combination of yin and yang because, but it's like maybe an atypical, and I don't know if it's that way with the two of you or not, but he's the yin and I'm the yang.
So go into that a little bit. Explain what you mean.
He's a bit more conservative. He's the Libra. I'm the Leo. I'm like, let's do a flow pod studio. Uh-huh. And then he's like, oh, I don't know. Should we?
And so with that said, is he then more of like the logistics of things? Like, okay, that's a great idea, Tammy, but we got to figure out how we got to actually make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think there's definitely, it kind of goes back and forth a bit. It depends what the topic is. But I definitely think of things that feel good, and I have no idea how they're going to happen, and I'm not good at making plans. And then he comes in and he can help me like make sense of the chaos.
Yeah.
That's how ours is anyway.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar to you?
It's pretty familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
I love planning too. So we kind of share a bit of that, but then he's always the one, and probably just happened a couple of days ago when I go, okay, this is happening, that's happening, got this going, and that's going. He's like, okay, Libra. Just look at one thing at a time.
Right. So he wants to kind of have that like calm balance. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm sure he's been enjoying the float tanks as well.
He has.
Yeah.
He's been trying to keep up with me on how many floats.
Right. So let's talk about that.
Oh yeah.
So when did you when did it get like finished where you could actually hop in the float tank?
Let's see. Right around, it would have been about the 1st of March.
Okay, so that was like 3.5 weeks ago?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that span of time, you have floated how many times?
13 times.
Wow.
Just about every other day. And then like in the last week, it's been like with 2 days in between floats. And I'm not really trying to like push a record or anything.
Right.
But I wanted to see what it felt like. And I thought, this is really what I do. I kind of do research for people, and then I tell people what I feel.
Right.
And, firsthand experience of what's going on and what it does for me.
It's the best way.
Yeah.
So what does it do for you?
Well, I found that the 11th float, which those were every other day, by the 11th float, it felt like something changed a little. So, and I kind of thought, oh, okay, 11th float's game changer right here. This feels different. So I felt like when I got into the pod, I was able to lay down and just really close my eyes, turn off the lights, everything, and then just get to that point very quickly. And it probably has a little bit to do with familiarity, being more familiar with how the water works, how buoyant it is, what the pod feels like, how you shower when you get in, how you shower, all the logistics of that gets very familiar. You kind of feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. But the clincher happened on Tuesday night when I normally teach a vinyasa flow yoga class. And then I proceeded to just go through the motions of teaching a traditional hatha yoga class because I literally didn't know what day it was. Now that sounds a little... People are like, uh-oh, don't float. It seems like really way out there. But what I mean by that was that Tuesday didn't have a feel.
And that was, okay, this was, your 11th float was before that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this was the next day? Or no, you floated that morning?
Yeah. Well, it was, I don't think on that day.
Basically, I'm asking, so you had this switch, and then you felt like kind of?
Last Tuesday.
Okay.
Last Tuesday. It had that 11th float, and then I noticed when I was teaching class that... And it took me till the end of the class to realize it. Oh, it is Tuesday. because I realized who was in front of me, and usual people who come to these classes, and I think, oh, I just went through a full hatha yoga class, which is fine and great, and it feels very similar, but it's different.
It's not what you were.
It's not what I was supposed to teach.
Right.
and I realized it was because the days didn't have a feel to me anymore. So, like, you know how you feel like it's Monday, you got a lot of stuff to do, you've been having fun and kind of chilling over the weekend, and then things maybe kind of pile up, and Monday has a more of a
momentum or gearing up.
Got to dig in, and I got a lot of stuff to, or maybe stressful, you know, or lots of things on the schedule. And then maybe Friday has a great feel because you're like, oh, it's Friday, weekend's coming up. And I have been working towards, not feeling like I have to go on vacation because my regular life is so stressful that I have to go on vacation.
Right.
And so that's been changing. So we go on vacation, we go, well, this feels like normal life. That's good.
Yeah.
Because your normal life is becoming less stressful and more like a vacation and more relaxed and peaceful. But getting to that point where the day of the week didn't have a feel, because I'm teaching yoga all the time. I'm teaching meditation all the time. I'm with people doing acupressure all the time. And so the day of the week kind of gets its sense by what I'm doing that day. Mm-hmm. So that's how I kind of know what day it is. Mm-hmm. But that moment when I thought, I don't even know what day it is.
And you felt that was like a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Like a sense of relief.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So when it comes to floating, let's kind of back up a little bit, because I'm imagining that I know my audience, just from what I've posted a few times, a lot of them have no idea what this is, what sensory deprivation floating even is.
Okay.
So let's start there. What is maybe the purpose? Also, what are the mechanics? Like when you go in the room, which they'll be able to see on the video, but like what's in there? What's so special about this pod? Like how do you have sensory deprivation? You know, all that, like the temperature of the water, what's in the water, all that details.
It looks and feels like a small car, literally.
The pod.
The pod. When I open the pod, it feels like I'm opening the trunk because it's substantial. It's a heavy duty piece of equipment. But it's smooth and it's soft and it's white and and it's very inviting. We have 200 gallons of water, and we have 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts in that water. So when you go to get in the water, I always kind of feel like when I'm leaning back, I'm getting lifted up, and I kind of go, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
And you lay down, and there's literally nothing you have to do to float. So if you normally know how to float and you're good at floating like in a lake or in the pool or whatever, you might have to remind yourself, don't try.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a struggle I felt in my floats for sure.
Yeah. We do have what are called a halo. So it's kind of like a circle with a hole cut in the middle, and you put it behind your head. So if you're having trouble letting go of your neck and shoulders, you can put that back behind there. Mm-hmm. The pods have controls, so we can talk back and forth with our desk here. If anybody has any questions, they can always hit the intercom and ask us questions.
Oh, that's cool.
Little controls for different colors, so you can do chromotherapy while you're in there. The chromotherapy is kind of related to the chakras, and every chakra energy space, as it's known in yogic theory, has a color association. So if I have a heart chakra imbalance, I might want to turn green on in there, because that's the color that's associated with the heart chakra. Mm-hmm. And then you close the lid, and there's tons of, I'd say that's 10 inches of water. I'd say there's like that much room. So people are really kind of most worried about it feeling claustrophobic, but it really doesn't, because there's so much headroom in there. It's really a lot of headroom. It's very, very light if you want to have the lights on. And so I think it's kind of like this eventual experiential thing. You don't know what's going to happen on your first one, so you just kind of observe it all, and you might have your eyes open more. But then on your next few, you might decide to close your eyes a little bit more, or maybe even turn out the lights in the last 10 minutes, or whatever. There's no way to do it wrong. But it is has traditionally been called sensory deprivation, and we like to call it sensory enhancement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you deprive yourself of all that input, of all our electronic devices and all of the people around us and all the stimulus that's going on and the noise and everything. So the rooms are soundproof. They're double-walled. They have gypsum drywall that's meant for soundproofing.
Oh, cool.
So they have 2 spaces where we have insulation as well, and so it's soundproof room. The pod is pretty soundproof as well when you close the lid, and
yeah, then you're left to feel yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Do you think that's the scariest part for people?
I do think sometimes it is. Yeah, because I get, what am I going to do in there?
What's the point? What's the purpose? What's the ROI?
Or yeah, exactly. And then I hear people say, how am I going to stay in there for 60 minutes? And they're not quite sure how they're going to be able, like they feel like they might have to get out. But those are the fears ahead of time I think people have. Once they float, they kind of, the Epsom salts relax you incredibly. I like to call it float face. So people have float face when they come out.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, it's just in this bliss, like, yeah, I mean, I have goosebumps thinking of it because it's been 2.5 years since I floated last, yeah. But I remember the feelings. Yeah. And I really love using floating as an example of this, because I think when we already talked about this, but like when you go into an uncharted territory, right, a place that's new, unfamiliar, and especially if it's by yourself, then it feels really scary. And no matter what, no matter who you are, that resistance will always come up. Stephen Pressfield talks about it as it's like an entity. Resistance is an entity, and it's not you, it's not yourself, you're not weak. It's just like the natural part of the mind to be like, well, what are you going to do in there? What's the purpose of this? Will I feel claustrophobic? All these things. It's like, okay, let's let those come up. Yeah. So how do you think people can work through those, or how have you worked through those, even if it's not having to do with floating, but how do you work through your resistance around things?
So the ego always loves a problem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I guess I can kind of relate to it more through that kind of verbiage.
Yeah.
That's a big question. It's a really big question. So kind of doubling back, you were wondering how I personally, or how I suggest that people do that?
I guess both, because I'm sure what you suggest is what has worked for you, right?
Yeah. Well, I would have to say that I tell people, or I encourage people to work with the small stuff. So we don't want to kind of jump into the big, huge stuff that's hard. There are small, little things every day that we can start working on, and then when we get better at those things, like dealing with those small inconveniences and worries and fears, that it's much easier to tackle the big stuff. Yeah, those little wins, they build momentum. Yeah. And confidence in yourself. Yeah. And to acknowledge them.
Yes, that's huge.
And give yourself credit.
Yep.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
And we don't tend to do that. I think we think our lives are too busy, and we think our lives are too filled with other important things to be dealt with, to take that time. Or maybe we just need to have somebody remind us that that's an important thing to do.
Yeah. You guys hear that? This is your reminder. Celebrate your little wins. There's actually an app that I downloaded recently. It's called Windstreak. It's a free app. It's really simple. You could do this in your notes on your phone, but it gives you today's date, and then there's basically blank space where you get to go in and add every single little win throughout the day. So it's like the opposite of a to-do list.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's cool. Windstreak. I'll link it in the show notes as well. And another idea too is like a little wins jar to write down all your little wins on a little piece of paper and put them in the jar, and then maybe like at the end of the month, especially with kids, this is really fun, because then you can pull them out and be like, look at all this stuff that we accomplished or that we did, the fears we overcame this month or this week, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a cool, tangible way to celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
So, just kind of switching gears a little bit, talking about you and where you're at now, and maybe say that someone's listening and they want to own a yoga studio, or they have dreams of opening up float tank space, or just doing something grand, right? Because this, maybe someone in here would see this and be like, I wouldn't even know where to start. But you obviously didn't get this space seeing all of this and going right in for it, right? My boyfriend and I have large ideas, and recently we've been like really like letting them play in our minds and talking them out, and then we struggle with this space of patience to let that like come, and knowing that even if you can see it all right now, you can't do it all today.
Exactly. Exactly.
So how has that looked for you? How have you let those visions come out, and you and your husband create them together? And then, what role does patience play for you?
It's a big subject, and patience, because I think I hate to like go right back to astrological sign all the time, but I think it's really true for me. I'm a Leo, and I tend to get really passionate about things, and something I've been really just realizing about myself lately is that I do want things like to happen right away, because I'm so excited about them. I'm so passionate about them. And this process really, really allowed me to work on that patience. But I think that when you have an idea that you want to do something and it's rather big or courageous or whatever, it's one step at a time. And I really, really, really enjoy that. I really enjoy that. So I look at what we need to do, and I kind of go, okay, we need to do this, and we need to do that. And then we start doing those things one step at a time. And the other thing that I would say is don't let yourself talk yourself out of it because you don't think that other people will want to help you. Because if you ask, you probably will receive. It's not going to be anything magical, but you have to be the one to ask, and so you have to kind of double back. And so not only am I a Leo, I'm also like a solar plexus kind of subtle imbalanced person, so this is an area that's difficult for me. It has a lot to do with self-worth and self-esteem. And so when we were like figuring out, okay, this is probably going to cost 6 times the amount that we thought it was going to. How are we going to do this? Because we're already here, and we need to still do this. So when it came to like going to the bank and asking for loans, I used that as a solar plexus meditation. So I got good here first, understood clearly what I needed, understood clearly what I wanted, so I could go in and ask for what I needed, and then like hugely to my surprise, I got what I asked for.
Wow.
But I knew if I didn't go through that little process, if I went in there fearing that they wouldn't agree to do what I would ask them to do, that they weren't going to do it. I'm pretty sure that would have happened the way that
I totally get that. I totally get that. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know a lot about chakras, but the little bits that I've read and that I've listened to and that I've practiced, my solar plexus absolutely is out of balance, and has been for a long time. And I've been consciously working on that too. I think so many women, I'm sure men too, but I feel, obviously, I can relate to women more because I am one. I think many of us struggle with the solar plexus, and being able to even speak what is on our mind and say what we want and own that. It's so scary because there is so much fear around being declined, being judged, and literally just that feeling of like you rob yourself of the opportunity before you even try.
Right.
You're like, well, it's not going to work. They're going to say no, so I'm just not going to talk.
Yep. I've seen that rise up, and so I knew that I needed to do some type of meditation within myself before I stepped forward and did that, and it was just so clear. But 10 years ago, it wouldn't have been for me.
So what does that look like exactly? Is there like a certain meditation that you, like, is it on YouTube? If not, can you make it and put it on YouTube?
That would be a really good idea, probably, because I didn't see it and I haven't heard of it, and I just knew that I had to do it. And I think that, you know how when people say, get clear on your intentions, it's very similar to that. So not only getting clear about what you want, what you want to ask for, but also getting clear on that you deserve it. That is something that you can have, and that if you want it, you should have, and that you deserve it.
Yeah, because that part's so important, because that is the energy that comes out with the request, right? And that's why you said you knew that if you went in with fear, that it would probably be denied or declined, because you're asking from a place of lack and and that you're not worth it.
And like you said, they can feel it. It's those nonverbal cues and vibration.
Yeah, absolutely. It's real. Yeah, very cool. Well, to kind of wrap things up a little bit, I want to talk about something I ask all of my guests, which is this question around going forward in your life right now. What is something that you want more of, and what is something that you intend to come clean of?
I want more days where I don't know what day it is.
More floats then, right?
More floats.
Gotta get to 22.
Yeah.
Double it up.
Yeah, I do. We're just moving from a space where I was coming to the studio 2 to 3 times a day, teaching classes, and then I would go back home between classes because there was no more work to do here, to running a float studio that's open 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, with my husband and my son. And so we're living here, we're being here a lot more, and so I look forward to more of those relaxed times that we're doing what our work is, but it's like you said earlier on, it's play, that it's not work, and we're holding that space. I'm looking forward to holding space for more people to be themselves and feel like they're coming out of clock world, so to speak, and that there's no rush and no hurry here. Yeah. What do I want to come clean of?
We can pause there for a moment too, because I just love that. I think there's this idea, I posted about it a couple days ago, of ripples. Like, even a small change that you make in someone's life creates ripples, because they have a family, they have a partner and or children, they work a job, And so the fact that you and your husband and your son have created this vision and made it come to life, even though it was scary and maybe challenging at times to create the whole vision and then put the extra time, effort, and money into it, there's now a space that wasn't here before in Rockford. And I know I haven't traveled the whole world, but I can't think of a better place to put float tanks than Rockford, Illinois. So those ripples will be felt, even if someone comes and they float one single time, even if they just try it out and they never come back. You've made a difference in Rockford because that's a ripple that will continuously go out. So thank you for doing that. I think that's a huge win, and I'm grateful for you.
Thank you for saying that. I'm glad.
Yeah. So, you can continue on. I just had to throw that out there.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. Come clean on, or come clean. Explain to me just a little bit more what you mean by that.
Oh, I love that you ask. So the podcast title is Coming Clean. It started because I had my own experience of coming clean about 5 years ago. And so for me, coming clean can look differently for everybody. Mine was very extreme because it was my breaking point and then resulted in my awakening, or at least the beginning of my awakening. So I came clean of gossip, texting and driving, my bartending job because it wasn't fulfilling or in alignment with me, wearing excessive amounts of makeup. In fact, I gave it up all together for a while. Now I play with it a little bit. Shopping, for things I don't need. So coming clean really means letting go of something that no longer serves you, so you can expand into your truest, most authentic self. And I don't think it's ever done. That's why I think even someone like you, who you've been through so much and you have awakened and you have grown and you've really gone deep within yourself, I think there's always something to come clean of, even if it's small.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about a couple of things I feel I've just recently come clean of, and with this process of building the center, that feeling sensation of the maybe slight unworthiness and the solar plexus and coming out of that bubble of protection, of a safe space, and venturing out in the world and remembering what everybody deals with every day. I don't know. I feel like I've just come clean on that. I don't know. And, you kind of sit in that for a moment so as to maybe let the next thing rise up. I don't know if the next thing has risen up yet.
Yeah, that is so cool to think about too, because like you said, you just came clean of so much and now you're in this rebirth. You've got this beautiful space. It just literally opened. And you've floated 11 times, right? In the last 3 weeks. Or no, 13 times. Yeah, you're like 13. And so I think that's even an interesting thing to think about, because it all ebbs and flows. So you don't necessarily have to be coming clean of something right now. And I think that's important for people listening to understand, is that there's a cycle to everything. There's a season to everything. And it almost feels like that, like the moment that you finally had that rebirth and you're feeling it and you're loving it, that's when another wave comes. And then you continue the process.
The yin and yang of it all.
Yeah.
And then when you're in those deep spaces where you're seeking out and looking at and finding those things that you want to come clean of, and then you're up here, you're like, oh, so maybe I'm up here right now, and I'm like, things are great and awesome. You still want to be the hub, in the center of the wheel. So being here but not being too down about it, and then being here but not too crazy about it, and just stay in that center, in the hub, and watching it. So I'll be watching for those new things to come clean on my next level.
I love that so much. Yeah, that stable core is so important, to not be too attached to those extreme highs or extreme lows. That's beautiful. Thank you. No one's ever said it like that on the podcast before, so thanks.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to tell everybody before I close it off and just thank you for having us here?
Kind of like I have created this space here for others. I would maybe even like to put it out there that everybody can create a space for themselves, and everybody can create space for others to just be exactly as they are. And when we do this, it really allows relationships to blossom and everybody to feel welcome and people to feel like they can be who they are. But create space for yourself and others.
Oh, that hits me hard right now. You have no idea. I love that so much. And that can look like anything. That's the coolest part, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a facility, but it could.
Right. Exactly.
It can look like anything.
Exactly.
So cool. Well, thank you, Tami.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here.
This was so fun.
Yes, it was. We'll have to do it again sometime.
I'd enjoy that.
Awesome. Maybe bring your husband in next time. We can do a round table discussion or something.
That would be good.
After you've gotten like 100 floats in.
Yeah.
You won't have a clue what year it is.
Yeah. What year is this?
That'll be the day. Yeah. Well, we'll link everything in the show notes so everybody can come check out floating for themselves, because that's truly the best way to figure out what it is, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, and we'll talk to y'all next time.
Thank you.
Yep. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy life to hang out with me and my guest. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please feel free to share it with a friend, anyone who you think could benefit from this conversation. And also send me a message or a comment or an email, wherever you find me. Connect with me and let me know, why did you enjoy this episode? Did you have any aha moments? Were there any times where you heard us say something that you didn't even think about before? Just let me know so that I know that you're listening, and I just really appreciate your feedback. So I look forward to talking to you all next time. Thanks again. So we're recording? Cool. I'm just putting my earrings on my sweater because with the headphones,
that would be disastrous for your equipment, because there's about 5 gallons of water in there.
Oh no. Okay.